My name is Matt Chung, and this is my intermediate milestone video 1 for Educational Technology Summer 2020. And I'm going to jump right into it because I'm hoping to target between 2 to 5 minutes for this video. So first I'll cover my actual proposal, although you might have already read that in the PDF document submitted along with this video. Second, I'll focus on what I've covered over the last 2 weeks, which has predominantly been researching offline to online education post-COVID-19 for schools. And then second, I'll talk about some of the survey questions that I generated based off of the research that I've found so far. And then the last half of this presentation will focus uh, on learning objects, and I'll describe that a little bit and why I'm actually even looking at learning objects. But the idea behind that is to see if there's been an increase in knowledge artifacts that have been uploaded within the knowledge repository, and two, whether or not that material is being used increasingly as well. So as I mentioned earlier, prior to my research proposal, I looked at some of the research around, well, like all of us, around education and online education, and most of, if not all of that, was predicated on no pandemic, meaning all that all that documentation and all that research was done prior to COVID-19. So what I want to do with my research paper is take a look at the research methodologies before those recommendations and see what the recommendations are now post COVID-19, since the transition has had to be done very in a hurriedly fashion. So I'm wondering if a new model has emerged as a result of COVID-19, whether those techniques have significantly uh, been changed since this pandemic. So what I've done for the last 2 weeks is first really collect a bunch of research. And initially, I wasn't finding much when I started with Google Scholar. As a result, I reached out to Georgia Tech's library services, and they were actually a ton of help. They pointed me in the right direction, not only how to which website to use, but how to use it appropriately. So, for example, instead of Google Scholar, I'm using Georgia Tech's library a ton now. And previously, I was just slapping a bunch of keywords on there, but there's other things I should have been doing. For example, sorting by date. For example, I want to look at documents before COVID-19 hit, and I want to look at research in articles post COVID-19. So actually, this has been pretty helpful looking through Georgia Tech's library. And then I've used a variety of different websites like SSRN. I set up email notifications so that as new articles pop up, I'm notified. And lastly, there's tons of webinars and online conferences going on, but I actually haven't been able to tap into this. I actually, so far, don't know how to incorporate webinars and online conferences into my research paper. So I'm hoping to explore that maybe over the next week or two to see if I could use that as a resource. Regardless, though, of where I'm getting the information, I'm dumping everything into Zotero at the moment. This is what I use for referencing, and I'm sure you're using it as well, and generating my bibliography. In addition to that, I'm taking some of the techniques that I've learned in this course actually, and not necessarily reading all of reading the paper end to end, although some of them I am doing that, but looking at the summary, looking at the main takeaways, and anything that's relevant to sort of the topics that are sort of emerging right now, I'm throwing that in my final research paper. Uh, right now, it's just a collection of quotes, and it consists it's literally 14 to 16 pages worth of quotes right now. But I'm hoping to massage and transform this into the final research paper in conjunction with my survey questions. The research I've seen so far, really, there've just been tons of tips actually, and they're research backed as well, but focusing on small groups as you move to online education. Don't rely on live video just in case there are technical glitches. Uh, don't just take your entire lecture video and convert it into an online video and then distribute that. There's a little more tact involved there. So based off of the research I've seen so far, I've created an online survey in Google Forms, um, base off of those tips that I found and see if what's going on right now post COVID-19, whether those techniques are being employed or if there are other techniques that are being used post COVID-19. So I'm hoping to use uh, my survey questions to help and support some of the research I've discovered already. As I mentioned earlier, I'm also looking at learning object repositories. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, um, there's a standardized way defined by the IEEE and another body, I think IMS, on how to share learning objects. And the way they do that is by slapping something called metadata on each knowledge object. And that metadata may have the date in which the article was published, what type of article it is, or maybe it's a video, but there's a bunch of attributes that go along with each of the artifacts there. And after talking with a librarian, I've discovered that Georgia Tech has something called a Smart Tech repository, and they actually offer an API that allows you to extract metadata from it. But one thing they don't allow you to do with this metadata is look at the usage statistics, meaning how many people are hitting that particular artifact a month ago, maybe 2 months ago in total. So there's a website for this, but unfortunately, since there is no programmatic API access, I'm left with effectively scraping this page. But before I did that, I did reach out to the administrators who own this platform, requesting permission, asking if it's okay, making sure I'm not going to get rate limited. But my idea is to extract all the usage statistics for the last 6 or 7 months for 58/57,000 articles to try to see if there's been an uptick in usage, or maybe there's been a decrease, or maybe there's been an increase in uploading videos, but maybe people aren't using it. I'm hoping to glean some more information out as I massage that, but as of right now, I've downloaded the metadata from all 57,000 documents, and I've also downloaded the HTML for all 57,000 documents, and I'm hoping to massage that data into some CSV file. And I'm going to skip over this since I mentioned it. It's sort of the metrics I'm looking at as I extract this information. Now, this is just a snippet of code. Here's the Smart Tech URI that I'm hitting, and I'm generating the URLs that I'm hitting and downloading it and persisting it to disk. So to wrap up, what are my next steps? I have a handful of instructors that I've already reached out to previously, and I'm going to send them those survey questions out most likely tomorrow or Tuesday based off of some of the feedback I get. In addition to that, I have a network of people who are also connected to professors. So I'm hoping to at least get in touch with at least 10 professors nationwide to take the survey that I have, since the survey is really targeted towards them and not administration or students. Second, I'll try to connect with some local universities. I'm based out of Seattle at the moment, so there's Seattle U, UW, and community college across the street. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, I'm hoping to translate the statistics that I've captured from crawling to knowledge repository and try to see if I could come up with a better sense of whether there's been an uptick in usage or not. And then finally, my mentor had mentioned that in my proposal, it's quite ambitious, and I didn't realize that, given this is my first time doing research, how much scope I probably need to reduce. So I just need to work a little bit hand in hand with him, review what I had stated in my proposal, and just fine tune that a little bit. So that's about it.